Welcome in another World Cup date, June 23rd, and every time we think that this World Cup can't find a new level of something, it does. And it did today with two pretty wild matches. The first one, not wild on the score sheet, England 3-0 over Cameroon, but wild for a million other reasons. The second one, wild because it took 120 minutes for the hosts, France, to get past Brazil 2-1. They eventually did with a goal in extra time. So many things to talk about. I think we've already spent about 10 minutes offline talking, so we decided to just hit record and start going. Jason Longshore, Jessica Sharman here with you. And, Jess, let's just start. England 3-0. And Phil Neville had a lot of things to say after the match, and some have had a negative reaction, and some have had a positive reaction. I had a positive reaction. Because I felt like it was a very hard game for England to deal with as well. And we'll talk about the Cameroon side in a second because there's a lot of elements to it there too. But England did keep their heads and did keep their composure, and I think they were rattled by the way this game played out, but they take care of business and get the win and move on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really difficult when a team that you're supporting wins 3-0 and you're not really delighted when the final whistle ends, other than the fact that you're glad that the game is over and no one's really been seriously hurt. It's an odd feeling. I've never had it. I've never been, supporting a team that's been so victorious and in an important game too. We're through to the quarterfinals, and yet I'm still feeling kind of bummed out about how the game went because it was just disappointing to watch and unfortunate. And I'm proud of England. I think you're right. They kept their heads. No one got hurt. No one responded in a way that was reckless and got any, dissent cards or reaction cards. But it was an odd one. It was a really, really strange game to watch. And I have to say, if I was one of those girls on the field, I wouldn't have known how to respond. I didn't even know how to respond to what happened as a viewer, let alone as a player. And when your opposition, after you go 2-0 up in some pretty strange circumstances, when they don't look like they even want to take the kickoff, how do you react? And when it goes to halftime and you're sat in that halftime team talk, as Phil Neville said, the players didn't really know how to react. And we made a few errors in the second half and didn't play great out the back. But you know what? They were probably distracted mentally. And that's what I've told people, that yes, there are some things we have to work on, but you can't really base England off this game because it was a very odd game to be a part of. And I think the players were playing potentially a little bit nervously, a little bit distracted, and, not really knowing how Cameroon were going to react next. And most importantly, trying to protect themselves because, as I'm sure we'll delve into, there were a few little knick-knack tackles that could have potentially kept some of our players out of the quarterfinals.
Yeah, let's start in chronological order here. 4th minute, there's a yellow card to Ivan Leuko. I was a little surprised that the video assistant referee didn't chime in on this one, and I'd love to know what kind of discussion was had. We all know, and by the letter of the law, know there's nothing about grading fouls based off whether it's the first minute or the 90th minute. But early in a match, no referee wants to throw a red card here.
No, absolutely you don't. It changes the whole, You can see why potentially the referee might have been a bit more lenient because you don't want to change a game so significantly, particularly in knockout football. But at the end of the day, by the letter of the law, it's a deliberate elbow to the face. It's to a player that, if you're an England fan, she's a target player for Cameroon. They're going to try and want to keep Paris out of the game because she's been so ruthless for England. And it was just a very odd decision by the Cameroonian player. And when there's VAR now, why take that risk? Because she really could have cost her team and had them down to 10 women early. And I think the referee potentially missed something here in terms of, if she had been stronger on that, giving the red card, potentially it would have set a precedent early perhaps, they felt like they could get away with a few things because the referee had chosen to be, lenient on that call.
Lenient there, but not lenient on the decision to call a back pass.
Oh, I don't think you can be lenient. I
agree.
think it's a back pass all day. And what's crazy is, I guess I have the advantage that I'm a goalkeeper, so I've grown up knowing all about the back pass rule since I'm little, because there are a lot of people that had some questions about why it's a back pass, or really about the rule, not having seen indirect free kicks, because it's not something you see very often. For me, it's a cushioned control, and it goes in the direction of the goalkeeper. It doesn't really matter the intent. If in her head she meant it to go towards the goalkeeper, if it looks like it's a cushioned, control towards the goalkeeper and it's below her hips, it's a back pass. And for me, it was a lack of concentration from the goalkeeper in a huge game, and she shouldn't have picked it up. But also, you have to look at the defender for letting it run to her goalkeeper in that position and shielding it. She encouraged the goalkeeper to pick it up. So it's kind of both those players' faults, and it didn't take VAR for the referee to call that one.
No, and that's my issue with it more than anything, is the defender shielding it. That's intent. That's showing the intent to play that back to the goalkeeper. Now, the goalkeeper could have blasted it into the stands, and that's what she should have done there. But she picks it up. It's an indirect free kick from inside the 18. It's tricky because not something you practice at all.
No.
England gets the goal there to go 1-0 up.
Well, Steph's had some practice at those ones. I don't know if you remember in the She Believes Cup, but the goalkeeper for the US team picked up one of those too. So we've seen two of them recently as England fans.
If any team has practice on it, it's England.
Yes, exactly. And she found the only gap she could have found in the whole wall. Dion Dublin on BBC brought up an interesting point as to whether the goalkeeper, she was stood in front of the wall rather than in that gap and left that gap. But I think that was just a remarkable finish. And you've got a tough job as Cameroon defending something that's that close. I haven't seen an indirect free kick that close for a very long time.
Yeah, it's just not something you generally prepare for. So England takes the lead there. Rest of the first half, not the greatest, but England was mostly in control of it. They get a goal that does go to VAR. And the AR, we've seen this a couple times today, AR delays putting their flag up as they are instructed right now. They put it up at the end of the play. It's a goal, but the AR is saying, no, it was offside. That's going to be checked every single time. And in this case, they check it, and Ellen White's onside. I mean, it's a pretty easy call.
A long way off onside too.
Yeah.
Like a good. When you look at the VAR replay, you wonder how the lineswoman got it wrong. Honestly, without being disrespectful, other than if she thought, I think it was Duggan on the left flank, was in an offside position, but not in an offside offence because she wasn't active in the play at all.
Right.
But you know what? It is a pain in the butt, the way that the lines people wait. It is frustrating when it's not a goal. But thank goodness they do it, because twice, and we'll get to it in the French game, but it shows why they wait, it is an important thing.
That's no goal.
Yeah, because they haven't even had a chance. In the past, Ellen White doesn't even get to take that shot.
Nope.
So thank goodness they left it down. And obviously we can go into the fact that Cameroon weren't very happy about it. Of course they weren't. When you get teased and lured into a sense of security that the linesperson's given it off and then it's overruled, you're going to be mad, but you just have to accept it and see that VAR has a better angle than you do. And the one thing that did drive me nuts, though, Jason, I'm not sure if you noticed it, but the Cameroon players were pointing at the big screen, the equivalent of the Halo board in the stadium. Right. Now, for me, I understand that you have to explain to the fans what's going on, but to show the replays in such a contentious game, it's not a great idea for me. Potentially, you show the replay with the line, the offside line that clearly shows that the player's onside, but you don't just show an ambiguous replay, because that just added fuel to a fire that didn't need to be lit.
I'm absolutely shocked they would show it. FIFA should not allow that to happen. And the only way they do is if they show the angle and with whatever graphic is needed to show why the ruling happened the way it did.
Because they kept pointing to the screen, arguing with the referee. And as we know, everyone that watched, they pretty much refused to kick off for 3 or 4 minutes.
And that it's just a mess. And it's another thing that Phil Neville mentioned in his post game where, he said, look, it's a goal. You have to get over it. You do. And the thing that is tricky about this and the added element to it that is exaggerated on the women's side for this tournament than it was on the men's side, although you did see some situations with this type of scenario, not to this exaggerated degree, but a team in Cameroon that has 8 players who play in the French league. The rest of the players play in the domestic league, which is maybe semi-pro at best. I don't know, and it's something I'm going to try to find out before tomorrow's show. I don't know if the French league uses VAR. I don't know if any women's professional league.
No, we definitely don't in England that I know of. The stadiums, just how in the NPSL they don't have, or WPSL rather, they don't have the technology in the stadiums yet.
Right, the NWSL does not.
Yes.
I don't think there is a league that does.
I don't think anyone plays in a stadium high tech enough. I mean, in England, it's not even in the men's game yet. So
yeah, exactly. And you saw it in the Men's World Cup last year where you saw some countries that reacted very badly to VAR situations because they have no basis for knowing how it works, and they don't like it when something goes against them. And look, that's understandable to complain about a call. We see it all the time. We've seen it for decades. But in this case, they feel like they were robbed in the situation, and they weren't. It was clearly onside. Like, there's no debate about it.
And what's tough is, for me, when you look at the coach, he is as riled up as his players. And
that's a massive problem.
It's the biggest thing, that the leadership was just as irate and just as determined to complain and putting the fourth official under some serious abuse. And I get it. It's hard. And, they are the underdog in this game. It does feel like all the decisions are going in favor of the big team, England. But at the end of the day, the calls are right over VAR. And it was disappointing. It was painful, and we'll get into the next VAR call that went against them in a minute. But it was just a shame to leave it so delayed after the goal. And I thought the referee probably should have, after, she gave them the respect. She let them do the huddle. But as they kept waiting and waiting, I think she needed to pull out a card. I think she needed to give someone a card for dissent, or someone a card for, time wasting, and just set her mark on the game, because it looked like she had no control, and that Cameroon could have just done whatever they wanted in that phase of play.
It's really difficult in those moments because referees are generally taught not to make it worse. And a card definitely would have amplified what's going on. And you have to balance. Can you manage it where it is? Can you manage it and continue on and try to get this game back on track? And that's what the referee ultimately decided to try here. I think she did the best she could with it. I don't know what the reaction would have been to a yellow there. It would have had to go to the captain, because you could see the referee come over and basically be like, let's go. It's time to play. Let's go. And was just kind of shunned.
Ignored. Literally was like, get out.
Almost
get out of our team talk.
Yeah.
And it was hard. And honestly, I don't even know how long was left. Potentially she should have just blown for halftime.
Yeah, and she could have done that. And that's what's so hard about it as a referee, because you're thinking through the laws of the game and what's going wrong and what to do, but you're also thinking the last thing I want in this match is for it to end with red cards, with drama, with chaos.
No one wants to be in that game, because she ends up being held responsible at the end of the day. And look, this is why not many people want to be referees, and as youngsters who are aspiring referees watch this game back, I'm pretty sure some of them are going to wonder whether this is what they want to do.
This game and the way it was managed, I mean, this is like a full referee course. The whole game and everything that happened in it, it's a full course of action that will be discussed for years and years and years by referees. So they do get the half restarted. They do get to the locker room after more arguments and more discussions. Go to the second half, and no, we're not done with drama.
Oh, my God. This moment killed me.
Yeah. Cameroon gets a goal, they think, but it is called back for being offside.
And for me, I'm going to be real, Jason. In that moment, like, I'm all for England winning, but part of me just wanted it not to be offside. I just wanted it to go to VAR and VAR to say it wasn't offside, because everyone, the commentators on BBC, they're biased towards England, but they were saying the same thing. Like, if this is given off, they're going to riot. And it was just, once the decision was given, and it was the right decision, she was very marginally offside. But as one British journalist said, you can't be just a little bit pregnant. So, you can't, you're offside. There's no such thing as a little bit offside. It doesn't matter. But for me, it was just miserable. And then we had anger. We had players crying on the field already. It was bad. And, we missed something already, Jason. We missed the spitting incident.
Oh, yeah, we didn't even get to that one. Let's flash back to the back pass. And I didn't get a great look at all of the context here when we started talking about it. It was Tony Duggan who was making the case to the referee. It's a back pass. It's a back pass. It's an indirect free kick.
Yeah, she was the one that was pressuring the defender and the goalkeeper on that side of the field.
And you can see her, there's a short clip of it where you can see her turning and walking away from the goal, and she's making motions, and the Cameroon player behind her, I mean, I can't be in that player's head, but spits in her direction. And
we could say it was awfully. Look, Devon for real told me I was being mean, and he told me it was, horrible timing on her part. For me, there's just too many coincidences there. It's the two players involved in the incident. One of them is Tony Duggan, who is, making the case, arguing, her arms are out. When you spit on the field, you don't spit straight. You spit down on the ground. And you kind of do it a little bit subtly. It's not something that you do. You don't hoik it up and direct your spit. And for me, that was on purpose, 100%.
It's tough. And again, it's in another big flashpoint in the match early. And the Cameroon player immediately was, I thought, trying to say, no, I didn't intentionally do that. I didn't do that intentionally. Don't know for sure. That was another really harsh decision. And you've already had one. You already had the elbow that, I mean, even if the referee doesn't go to VAR for it, there's conversation on the headsets. The assistant referee, the VARs in the booth are looking at it. They're talking about it. So the referee knows, like, hey, there was something that was close here. Just go yellow. Then you get this. It's so hard at this point to manage it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so difficult. And if it's not 100% clear, I do get why nothing happened with it. But it's another one that I'd love to know the conversation that happened in the video replay booth.
Yeah, because if the commentators could see it and pull back angles, I'm sure the VAR saw it.
Yeah, it was really weird on the Fox broadcast as well, and I missed the first half live. I listened to a good bit of it on the radio, and missed this whole sequence. And when I get home and I see the melt of highlights from the first half, they show the aftermath. They show Tony Duggan like wiping off her arm,
saying
and
ew,
looking disgusted, and that's all they show, and no one said anything about it. It was the most
crazy
bizarre thing to me. And they did it again after the match. They had a million other things to talk about after the match, but still, it was in the highlight package.
That's crazy.
But it was like it didn't happen. It was the weirdest thing.
Yeah, because I remember I had to explain to you the whole context of the event.
Yeah.
So in BBC, it was emphasized. It was, hang on a minute, that's freaking nasty. What on earth? How is that not going to VAR was basically the points.
If there's any question about the intent, it has to be a red, because it's something that I've been on discipline and protest committees before at different levels, at youth and adult, and spitting at a player is the same as striking them. It's the same as punching them, and that's the way that I always felt about it. So,
and honestly, I find it worse because it's disgusting. It's disrespectful and disgusting at the same time as being violent.
Mm-hmm. And I'm surprised that it was not discussed more. I'll be very curious to see if anything comes out after this match. But we have more to talk about because that's still not all. There's still more to get into.
Lord.
England nearly gave up a goal on a poor back pass. Great save by Bardsley. You could tell at this stage with everything that has gone on that I thought England was out of their heads a little bit.
Yeah, I thought England was impacted by the game completely. We weren't playing good enough. We were shaky at the back, and we got out lucky. I thought we were going to concede one. We did concede one. Like I say, it was pulled back, but Barsley's good save, we could have been 2-1, which would have been a dangerous position for us.
A really dangerous position, but they do get the third goal in the 58th minute. Corner kick, Alex Greenwood gets it. Duggan gets the assist.
And that's a great goal. I love that goal so much. That was training ground move, and I think it was what they needed to settle their heads a little bit. It was a really tough game to partake in, and I'm not trying to play England as this victim card. They're professional women's soccer players. They know about drama, but it was not an enjoyable game for any of these players.
No, they handled it as well as you possibly could. Later, as we're getting towards the end, there was another look from the video assistant referee on a potential penalty for England. It was not given. It could have been given. It definitely could have been given. I wonder how much of a, look, it's late, it's 3-0. Do we really want to give this here? I wonder how much of a discussion like that was had.
I think that was pretty much exactly what happened. We've seen penalties like that given all tournament. I think it was damage limitation.
Absolutely.
Damage limitation. Hey, we don't need VAR to go against, Cameroon again. We don't need another nail in the coffin. England are winning 3-0. It's not like goal difference matters in knockout football. Let's just get this game done.
Well, the referees still weren't done because in stoppage time, an absolutely horrendous tackle from N'Golo on Houghton in front of the Cameroon technical area. Houghton goes flying off to the feet of the Cameroon manager, who I thought it was an awful look the way he handled the whole thing.
He did not give a crap that she was in front of him rolling around. He looked like honestly, that was... And we'll get into the captain's reactions too. That was the worst look.
Yeah, that whole
he's
thing
meant to
really
lead by example.
Me. It was a bad look. You had the captain screaming at Houghton, who's on the ground, and when you see the replays of it, I felt like it's as easy of a straight red as you're going to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It's late. It's intentful. It's studs on the ankle. And again, England fan here, but Houghton isn't a player that goes down easy. She's made of steel. She's the captain that's made of steel. If it had been certain other players on our team, maybe you think, okay, there's a bit of gamesmanship, exaggeration going on. But she was in pain. And for the coach, she's literally at his feet, potentially on his feet. He walks away, doesn't really look back, and is just complaining about other things. And for me, as a coach, you check that player's okay right away. And he didn't care, and that was a shame. And then for the captain, who I thought, I didn't think she was too terrible throughout the game to begin with. She seemed to be one of the ones that was trying to encourage her players to keep their heads, to stay positive. That 90th minute incident was the breaking point for her, and it was disgusting to really watch her screaming at Houghton to get up, complaining that she was time wasting. And honestly, if the coach, if the captain all saw that challenge, I think they would realize that they were in the wrong, because that was a really bad tackle.
And it's a really important thing to mention too, and it's something that I have not seen discussed. This was at the very end of the match, and if you go back and you look at the final whistle and you look at Phil Neville's reaction, he's looking over at the Cameroon technical area and he's shaking his head sideways. This is after, and you can see it in pictures over at the Manchester Evening News, of Phil Neville over checking on Houghton in pain in the Cameroon technical area, and Cameroon's manager's just standing there with his arms out, like, what?
Mm-hmm.
And then
I think the camera showed the two men having a conversation afterwards, and
after
it looked like
while they did
Neville's wording was being, falling on deaf ears, pretty much.
Well, Phil
I think
Neville
there was.
said, and it's quoted from the Evening News, he said, "I want to speak first. One, Steph Houghton was player of the match, and she can't be here as she's on the treatment table from the tackle that everyone saw. She needs to recover. She's in a lot of pain. It's not FIFA's fault this time." And then said, "We're concerned about her. She's not someone that stays down. It was a late tackle, and we're going to have to do everything possible to get her fit for the quarterfinal. She's a big player for us, our captain." Now, take that and take that to Phil Neville speaking to the media 5 minutes after that happens. And all the people who I think have jumped down Phil Neville's throat for saying the things that he did, you just watched your captain get spiked at the end of this match right in front of the other team manager.
Can I say,
like
in a 3-0 game,
yeah,
it's not 1-0 at this point. Cameroon's know they've lost. Those tackles maybe go in a 1-0 game with 5 minutes left because they're so desperate to try and get possession back. This game was done. That was a tackle out of frustration and a tackle that I think had intent to hurt.
It's a tackle that could hurt England's chances in the quarterfinal. And that's what is frustrating about it, because after all of this we've talked through with this match, that's going to be a major storyline coming out of it, is now England moves on to the quarterfinal to face a Norway team that has been good in this tournament and will not be an easy opponent. And they might not have their captain in that match because of that tackle at the end, that you had the opposing team's captain screaming at your player, and you had the opposing team's manager standing there like, what's going on, stepping over your player. That's going to rile up any manager in the world. So when people get bent out of shape about what Phil Neville had to say afterwards, go back 5 minutes in the match, and that's probably a pretty big reason why he was so frustrated.
And honestly, I and we've talked about this, I don't think he said anything wrong. I think that he could have been even more direct and to the point. And some of the comments, and we can just use Hope Solo as an example. Hope Solo basically said that we have to understand that a lot of the Cameroonians didn't understand the rules of the game. That to me is codswallop. It's disrespectful. Like we said, there were, I think you said 7 or 8 players on that team that do play in the French league. And regardless, any female player, male player playing semi-professionally, playing professionally, even playing amateur, they know the offside rule. They know the rules of the game. And for her to undermine them with that blanket brush is just very disappointing for a player of her caliber and her status. And I just think that it's ridiculous that she would assume that a team in the World Cup wouldn't understand the rules of the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's demeaning to Cameroon, and as frustrating as it was to see some of the reactions to things, and especially to see that tackle at the end. That's the incident that I had the biggest issue with from what I saw, because it had no place in that match whatsoever. There are reasons for this, and we've talked about it, and you have a team that only has 8 players playing in the French league, and the rest play in a small domestic league. They don't deal with this pressure. We already talked about how they don't deal with VAR, so dealing with a VAR incident is going to be a shock to the system. They generally don't play in front of these types of crowds in dealing with this type of pressure. This is a huge match for them, and we all know that. Mm-hmm. There is a balance between the two things, I think. I mean, what Phil Neville said, I don't think he said anything wrong. I don't think there's anything he said that was incorrect. Was it harsh? Yes, it was. It was extremely harsh. And it's something that if you've watched the game from Cameroon, and this has been the case on the men's side too, this Cameroon team did not have proper preparation for the tournament. It's been discussed in the lead-up. The men's team often has had to threaten to go on strike at a World Cup to make sure they're going to get paid, or get paid what they were promised to get paid. In this case, the federation issues are not just a gender issue. It is just a lack of proper management. And all of that does factor into the reactions and the moments that happen in this match. And it's an absolute shame, because Cameroon had the goal of the tournament for me.
Yep, that's what I was going to say. I was so bummed out because, I'll be honest, had they not been playing England, I'd have been rooting for them. They had a great success story. It's the first time that 2 African nations have qualified, and what's sad is a beautiful story and something that should be inspirational has been turned into something pretty much the opposite. There's people saying that it's been a shame for young girls to watch and all of that stuff. And I think that we just need to, as hard as it is, and look, if Houghton's out, that's going to really, really be a problem for England, and that's going to be something that is unforgivable. But from my perspective as an English fan, I want to kind of forget about the way that game went and think of the Cameroon in the group stages that never gave up and that worked hard. And at the end of the day, some of those frustrations stem from an unsupported FA, from fears of not getting paid. We've seen the Nigeria team right now in the hotel on strike, refusing to leave the hotel because they're not going to get paid. And I'll be honest, I'm grateful that my country does respect their female players enough to play them, that they don't have that fear while they're playing. So it's a sad consequence, and I don't think that's all that it's about, but that probably did add some sort of frustration to their game, and it's sad that that's part of this sport.
It's a complicated situation all the way around, and I think it's really easy to jump to very quick 280 character encapsulations of this, but you can't.
Maybe a thread. We'll give them a thread.
It definitely gets at least a 10 tweet thread, because it's complicated and it's complex and there's a lot of moving parts. I hope that what this tournament is remembered for is two African nations making the round of 16 for the first time, and I hope that becomes a common thing, and I hope that you start to see these players better supported so they are better prepared to deal with these types of situations and this pressure, because they have the ability to play at this level and challenge a top team like England who can win this tournament. Cameroon did not make it easy for them in the match today.
No. And like I said as well, at halftime after that goal incident, they had several chances while the game was 1-0, and I wasn't relaxed. I was not relaxed watching that game for a minute, even before the drama started. So that's why I say I'm going to try and remember the positives of these teams and these nations, and we have to take stuff with a pinch of salt. And, we can reflect back on it a few hours later and realize that it was far more than just that one game that contributed to the mess that happened.
Yeah, 100%. And as this is going to be a jump-off point for the women's game around the world, moments like this are part of that. And these types of things are not going to be the norm in the long run. You're going to see more professional players from different countries around the world who have this experience and can lead by example. One such player who has done that is Marta. And Brazil today, it kind of did have a bit of a feeling afterwards of the end of an era. And we were talking about it. It was towards the end, because you could tell they just couldn't keep up physically. And it was something that we talked about yesterday, as Brazil has struggled to have Marta. This was the first time she finished a match in the tournament. Christiane hadn't got past the 75th minute until today, and then she took a long shot and her quad went
that was horrible to watch. Yeah, just knowing that she had pulled either her quad or her hamstring, it was gross.
I don't think Formiga had finished a match in this tournament and missed a match due to yellow card accumulation. Those were the big three for Brazil, and you knew that if Brazil didn't get a big early lead, and even if they did, France would have a chance to push them, and eventually Brazil just ran out of gas in this match, and it felt like a matter of time. I did wonder when France was going to turn it on. Set pieces were their main threat, and they finally get the winner off a set piece. But let's start with Brazil before we move on to France, because France is a contender in this tournament. They were a pick for many, including me, before the tournament to win the thing. They haven't looked like that team. Don't know how much we took from today. I don't think they look like that team today either.
Nope.
But they did show strength in getting through it.
And character. I would say they showed strength and character, some resilience, because you could tell the crowd were bothered that they weren't winning the game comfortably. But I don't think they looked like a world-beating team, and it was a bit of a shame. I expected more, but fair play to Brazil. Like you say, it's a really odd one, the Brazilian team, because it's got these splatters of experience and splatters of quality, and then a lot of youth. And for me, it was the youth and the young minds that was the downside of Brazil. And we looked at the sort of press conference interview of Marta afterwards, and you have to wonder what Brazil really has going for them as much when those sort of three superstars hang up their boots, because despite their age, those three players that we've mentioned were the strongest players. I mean, Marta's doing recovery run one-on-one defending in the 90th minute, you know?
In stoppage time, Marta
and there's
1v1
players
defending on the end line.
Yeah. And there's players cramping who are 24 years old on the field, and Marta's the one stretching her out. And for me, as much as, cramping isn't a sign of really anything other than dehydration or fatigue, that symbol for me of Marta stretching out a young player was almost like a metaphor for how Brazil is right now. It's the older generation that are carrying the younger generation. And unless they up their game, you have to worry about, are Brazil going to be okay? Because you know what, Marta, Cristiane, they're the ones that have really been carrying the rest of the Brazil team on the back with the goals and with the performances.
You've seen it with different nations on the men's and women's side, where you have a golden generation that carries a team, and when they're done, that team fades away.
Yeah.
And
you're looking at Croatia on the men's side.
Croatia on the men's side, I mean, go way back to the 66 Portugal team that made it to a semifinal, and then you didn't hear from Portugal in a World Cup for 20 more years, and then it took another 20 before they were truly relevant. They had a golden generation and then nothing to follow it up with. And it really sounded like, and I want to give you the translation that Fox gave to Marta's post-game comments. It really feels like that's what Marta's worried about. And I just, she earned so much respect from me for the way she said this after the match. She said it's wanting more, it's training more, it's taking care of yourself more, it's being ready to play 90 plus 30 minutes. That's what I ask of the girls. There's not going to be a Formiga forever. There's not going to be a Marta forever. There's not going to be a Cristiane. The women's game depends on you to survive. And she's pointing at the camera. So think about that. Value it more. Cry in the beginning so you can smile in the end. I mean, if that's not a line right there.
Can I be honest? I get chills. Like, just hearing that, like, I'm not even being dramatic. Like, I felt like chills down my spine, because that's coming from a player that is inspirational to sort of my generation. Being 24 years old right now, that's someone that you looked up to on the female game. And that's kind of who she's talking to right now. And I don't want to say this, but you almost feel like she felt not let down. Those are her teammates, but not everyone. It felt like a lot of the errors in the game were coming from the younger players. There were some silly fouls in the last few minutes. It was very frustrating to watch, because Brazil, they were one down, but they had a chance in that extra time, but there were some foolish decisions being made and not the best game management. And it's a sad way for it to end for Marta. And those words are pretty much telling us that, she's not going to be in another World Cup. She's not going to get those 7 World Cups, or, she's ready to hang up her boots potentially in terms of international soccer.
I think she's at least thinking about it. I mean, this is it for Formiga. We don't know about Cristiane, but I think it's a rallying cry for the Brazilian youth, the next generation coming through. And look, Brazil's a country that the Federation has not supported the women's game either, and they've had some of the most talented players of this generation. I mean, if Marta's not the greatest player of all time in the women's game,
she is.
She's in the top 3. I mean, Mia Hamm's in the conversation.
Yep.
Michelle Akers from the beginning stages is in that conversation. There's others around the world too, but for me, like from what I've seen, it's Marta and Mia Hamm are the two.
And them as people and figureheads for the female game too, just as spokeswomen and inspirational figures. And it is sad, and I'm echoing the thoughts of a lot of people, but a player like Marta deserved a longer run in the World Cup this year.
Yeah, this was a sad way to go out. She went down fighting, but I mean, I tweeted it right at the beginning of extra time, talking about France being dangerous on set pieces. And I said if Brazil keeps giving up set pieces, France will find a winner.
I mean, we called it, didn't we? I think before our analysis of this game, I said where France has the advantage is set plays because Brazil is slightly disorganized. Well, not slightly, being kind. They're disorganized at the back. Their goalkeeper is scared of crosses or inconsistent at crosses, and France has the height advantage, and they showed that, and they gave up too many silly fouls today. Brazil offered up so many opportunities for France to serve deliveries in the box, and on a better day with better service and better finishing, France could have been several goals up easily.
24 fouls from Brazil. I mean, that's astonishing. 24. And so many late when...
Silly fouls, though. Just silly fouls.
In bad spots on the field, too. I mean, just spots where you cannot give up a set piece to with Wendy Renard as a target. You can't give up set pieces to France, period. But it's not just her. Let's go back through the match a little bit because there's a few talking points here. A really big one in the first half looked like a goal for France. It was ruled out after a VAR review. It's a little unclear as to what the actual decision was, and referees don't have to speak to the media. I think this is one thing that MLS gets right to a degree, in that there's pool reporters who ask questions, and even if it is written and it's submitted, the referee writes a response. A lot of times you don't get much out of that, but sometimes you get a little something out of it. And then also MLS goes back and breaks things down. Whenever it goes to VAR, they will show the video from the room. They'll show the conversation where you can hear everything. We don't know.
It's more open, isn't it? Here it seems quite closed off, all of this. That they'll word it as they're protecting the referees, but I think it causes more issues for the referees because it leads to us debating these things and questioning.
It causes a ton of problems for commentators, I can tell you that much from experience, because I don't know what they're being told. And in this match, from the Fox perspective, you had Derek Ray and Danielle Slayton, who were there on hand in the stadium. I don't know what they were being instructed with as everything was going down. I thought when they did show the video that was being looked at by the referee, I thought they were starting to zero in on a possible handball by the French player after the collision with the goalkeeper. I thought it came off her hand and went into the goal. And IFAB passed a new rule about the handballs this year where if it's accidental or not, doesn't matter. If there's a handball from an attacking player that leads to a goal or a chance for a goal, it is called back. I thought that's what they were starting to zero in on. A few minutes after the play was ruled back, Derek Ray on play-by-play mentioned that FIFA had said that it was called back for a foul on the attacking team, a foul committed by the attacking team. That's incredibly vague. That could be a handball. That could be the collision with the goalkeeper. Later on FIFA.com, in the match timeline, it was mentioned that it was because of the collision with the goalkeeper.
Which is BS to me.
I didn't like the call either.
If it's the handball, brilliant. If it's the goalkeeper, cool. Then, and look, I'm a member of the GK Union. I'm all for goalkeepers being protected when they deserve it. Longer. I know. I think there's petitions. I think I might get a letter in the mail soon. They can tell me that my card has been removed for not sticking up for goalkeepers. I've complained about Hope Solo, and I've said that goalkeepers are overprotected in one podcast. It's not okay. But for me, the reason it's not a foul is because the forward is entitled to challenge a 50-50 ball. It's only if the goalkeeper has full control of the ball, whether it be in one or two hands. If she has full control of the ball, then it's a foul. But she didn't have control of that ball at any single point. As I called it, she was crocodile catching. She was slapping at the ball, like sort of open-handedly. There was no sort of firm grasp on the ball. And honestly, the issue was she wasn't aggressive enough. And she allowed the forward a chance to come attack. And we've said it before, the Brazilian goalkeeper, she's a great shot stopper. But when it comes to dealing with crosses and judging the height and judging the flight, she's not. It's not her strong point, and she did better later on in the game. I'll give her credit for that, but there was still a couple where she just looks iffy.
Let me get Hope Solo back on your good side, because she tweeted out after this incident.
Oh, I read this tweet. She's brutal.
What a howler! Bad goalkeeping and a bad call. Barbara went off her back leg, was off balance, and had no control of the ball. Is it a foul for attackers to go for a cross? I guess it is. I mean, when you do look at the laws of the game and the situation, if the ball is between a goalkeeper's hands, and that's the way it's worded, doesn't say in their hands, it's between their hands, you can't mess with the goalkeeper. It's almost.
I wish
people,
I'd known that in college then, because
you know,
I'd have just been trying to get the ball in between my hands at any point. I'd be like, hey, I might not have caught it, but when you headed that ball, my hands were either side of it.
Yeah, I don't know if college refs are going to give you that one. I don't know how.
No, they definitely didn't.
Yeah, I don't know how up on IFAB they are. I mean, it feels like we're getting to a point where there almost has to be a bit of a protective halo. I mean, if you watch American football on a punt, on a fair catch, like, you have to give a certain amount of distance so the player can catch the ball cleanly. I almost feel like we're getting to that point because I don't know what the attacker is supposed to do.
I don't like that. I think that the rule was perfect and as I grew up, we were told that, it's only if the goalie has two hands on the ball, otherwise it's fair game. And they changed it when I was probably about 11 or 12, where it was one hand on the ball but under control. So, if you're on the ground and you manage to get one hand on top of the ball, the forward couldn't kick it out your hands anymore. And I think that's fine. I think that's fine, and crosses, unless you're actually making an effort to catch it and actually have the ball in your hands and it's knocked out, then I don't think so. Otherwise, it's going to make crosses so boring, because guess what? The goalie's just going to come for everything. And, it was a foul. It's going to make crosses boring.
This one's a frustrating one here, because I feel like Barbara could have caught it cleanly and still taken the hit and taken the foul. But she didn't catch it cleanly. That's on her.
It was her technique, as Hope points out well.
Yeah. It's one of those that I don't know what the decision was with VAR. And again, according to FIFA.com, it was because of the collision with the goalkeeper. They would have been far better off to say it was the handball. Because then there's no argument. Then it's, it came off her hand. Even though it's not intentional, it doesn't matter. It came off her hand, so okay, fine. There's really nothing to argue about here. Well, Valerie Galvan does get it back early in the second half. She gets the first goal. It's a great play from Diani down the right side. Great cross. Barbara can't get to it. France takes the lead, and it's looking like France is going to grab control of this match, but they don't. And this is what frustrates me about France at this point. They give up a goal that's, kind of sloppy defending on their end, and it's another one where the flag's delayed. It does go up afterwards, but they go take a look with the VAR, and very quickly it is overturned, and it is given as a goal.
That's fair play. Both decisions weren't that slow, and I don't even remember the referees going, I think it was just given directly through VAR rather than the referee running over.
They're supposed to, and I think this was something that took a minute in the Men's World Cup as well. They're supposed to, in the situation, not go look at the monitor, because it's an either or. It's a yes or
it's a
no.
fact. It's like goal line technology. So
it's
and
like
that's what I liked about
general.
it. Yeah.
Offside in general, the referee can't see it from the run of play, depending on where they are on the field. They're trusting their AR, and they're
it's never a ref's call, technically. Yeah,
no,
so I liked
exactly.
it.
I did too.
And that was good. And what I liked was it was almost nice that it happened, and now Cameroon can see it. Just wasn't them that was impacted by it too. So, it was good that it happened.
So that's 63rd minute. It's 1-1. It does feel like as the match was going on, Brazil was starting to struggle. Formiga goes out in the 75th minute, and you saw that.
I don't know if she needed to go out. I was a little bit disappointed with that one. She didn't look like she was struggling completely, and I think you just keep her until she can't walk no more, because she's a better defender than who they brought on. I
completely agree. The next sub, Leticia Santos, was cramping up, and she did need to come out. And then France brought on Delphine Cascarino, who I thought was excellent down the right side. I kept waiting for France as we got into extra time to just completely take control of this game. They didn't. It felt like Brazil kind of kept them in it with the fouls and consistently fouling in bad spots. And France started to look dangerous on set pieces. They finally broke through, and it was a player that we mentioned that we've wanted to see more from in this tournament. Amandine Henry gets the goal, and it's a textbook finish.
Yeah, absolutely. And she led by example, and that's what we needed from her. And I hope personally that it helps her grow into the tournament, because I think it's been a very quiet tournament for her so far.
Yeah, we really haven't talked about her very much, and she needed to have this moment. And this feels like the moment for France. At least it could be that you see the favorite having some struggles, but this is the one that galvanizes it. This is the one that gives them the momentum to go forward. And they're going to need it no matter who they face. It's the United States and Spain tomorrow at 11:30.
Let's touch on that. Stop everyone. Anyone listening that thinks that this isn't going to be a game and is already making there are punditry calls already being made on the USA France game, and that just irks me so much. Mm-hmm. Like there's still a game to be played, and as we saw in the warm-up, Spain only lost 1-0 to the US. This isn't going to be a walkover, and look, the US is a great team, but they're going to have a battle against Spain too, and that should be the focus. I'm sure the team's not looking towards preparing for France already, so we shouldn't, as fans, be doing that already either.
No, it's doing a real disservice to Spain. This is a team that they've only met once, the United States and Spain, and it was back in January. Kristen Press scored to give the U.S. the win. It was a game where Spain had 52% of the possession. I believe that might be the only game in 2019 that the United States did not have the possession advantage. Spain did not sit back and show fear of the United States in that match. And that's the key for me, is that they come into this with nothing at all to lose. Nothing
Absolutely.
at all. They get to this match and they can just play their game, and I don't see them sitting back. I see them trying to have that possession and trying to dominate the ball. I want to see what the U.S. comes out like. My big question, and Jill Ellis said today that Julie Ertz should be ready to go, Alex Morgan to be ready to go, everybody's available. They had a training session this weekend that was closed to the media, and that has not been the norm during everything going on during the World Cup. That makes you think a little bit, and it makes you wonder, is maybe there more of an issue with these injuries than we've been told?
Mm-hmm. It's a little bit, it's suspicious because it's so unusual. You know, that's not something that's always done.
It grabs your attention. I mean, it makes you think about it, and I'm frustrated by the talk that you mentioned about this is just a foregone conclusion. The United States are going to move on, and how do they get ready for France? Look, Spain is, I think, along with Italy, the two countries that in this World Cup cycle, I think England really benefited from it going into 15, where you started to see that investment pick up, and you started to see the professional club game become a much bigger deal. Spain and Italy have had that happen in this last cycle. And as great as Italy has been in this tournament, Spain has been flying under the radar a little bit. They don't have that star striker up top, and that's what they're missing. Everything else in this team is very strong, and I think they're a team that will not give up a ton of chances to the United States.
And they're the underdog. Like we say, sometimes it's easier being the underdog. You've got nothing to lose.
Look, Barcelona went to the Champions League final against Lyon, and we know how strong Lyon is at the club level. 10 players for Barcelona play for Spain. You have a cohesive core to the Spanish team. It will not be easy for the United States. Seeing the U.S. so far in the tournament, they haven't really been tested. Even the Sweden match, Sweden did not go with their full-strength lineup. What do you think the U.S. needs to be stronger at in this tournament?
Making better choices at the back and not getting complacent when you're up. I think there was some lackadaisical passes out the back, trying to find the perfect through ball from goalkeeper to checking in midfielder, stuff like that. You can't be turning the ball over against stronger teams that have better forward outlets. And maybe that isn't Spain, but against France, turn a ball over to Henry and she's going to punish you. Turn a ball over to another one of their forwards. They have good options up top, and you have to be better defensively, and we know the US lets up several goals. We saw it in the She Believes Cup. We saw it in World Cup prep against Australia. They have to tighten things at the back because, yes, they may not have conceded a goal yet, but they haven't faced the strongest oppositions that have tested their goalkeeper or back line yet, and that's only to come.
It's a tricky game because all the talk has been so much about the United States are going to win the tournament, and we're just looking ahead to this France game and all this stuff, and they haven't had that team to punch them in the mouth a bit yet. That's tough when you get to this stage and you're facing your first real competitive game, and you're facing a team that is going to play it so differently than what you've had in this tournament. I want to see what decision the United States makes early if they want to dominate the possession and make Spain have to play a different game than they're used to, or if they allow Spain to have that possession but use it as an opportunity to press.
Absolutely.
That's the biggest question I have for Jill Ellis coming into this. I would lean to the latter, honestly, because I think with the U.S. front three, they're so good pressing that it's almost an advantage here to let the opponent have the ball and play off of that. Because let's be real, we've talked about it. I don't think the United States is creating a ton of chances through possession. Create them through presses and turnovers.
Absolutely. And it's going to be interesting because I really do believe strongly that this is the first real challenge they've had. Sweden didn't really challenge them.
No, they didn't. Watch out for Spain. Watch out for Hermoso up top. She's their star. The United States needs to limit her chances. They need to press this back line. They need to try to make life difficult for Spain as they try to do what they normally do. They try to keep the ball. That's how they defend, is by having the ball. You want to flip that on their head. You want to press them and make it difficult for them. You're going to need to make that decision in midfield as well, and I want to see what Ellis does there. Is it, if Ertz is back in, is it Mewis, Horan, and or Lavelle? What's the two of that three? Because they're going to have to be heavily involved in the press. It's not going to be an easy match, and I think if you're getting ready for this game and you're starting to think ahead, don't. This will not be a simple match for the United States, and Spain will challenge them in a way that I just don't think they've been challenged since the She Believes Cup.
No, and it's exciting, and we've seen. Like I said, I keep pointing back to it, but it was 1-0 when they last played, so that's going to give Spain confidence. They're not going to be scared of playing the US.
No, not at all. Really looking forward to that one. And then there's one more match tomorrow as we start to look ahead. Sweden and Canada is the afternoon match. Two teams that have been pretty similar in the tournament, two pretty organized two teams that are fairly unspectacular, and they haven't really been all that great going forward. I think Kelly and I were kind of split on this one. I went Sweden, she went Canada. What are you thinking?
I think Sweden. I think they're going to be bothered by the fact the US beat them 2-0. They've rested some players against the US. They rotated their squad. They're going to come back in all guns blazing. And from the games I've watched where they have a decent forward press, and when they play their wings and get the ball into middle, I think they'll be fine. Canada, it's just been bland by Canada. Just very bland, simple, grinding out 1-0 wins here and there, but nothing to set your world on fire. And I think Canada is slightly... I think Sweden offers a little bit more. But it's going to be a close game, and I think it's going to be a pretty boring game, honestly.
Yeah. I'm not expecting fireworks unless it gets physical and you start to see a bunch of cards thrown. That's really about it for me in this one, because Canada has been bland. They've been boring in a lot of ways, and I feel like they're a stronger team than they've played. Sweden, that's a little bit of how they play, but I think Sweden has more quality, and Caroline Seger, their central midfielder, is one of the better players in this tournament, and I think she's going to really control this match for Sweden and limit what Canada can do in the build-up. I just don't know how Canada gets a goal here. I think Sweden gets one from crosses. I think Sweden gets one from attacking out wide. I don't really know what Canada does.
No, I then that's the thing. They've not been scoring many goals. They've been getting a lucky goal towards the end of games and stuff like that. Whereas Sweden have their style of play is a little easier to describe, and I think their wing play is pretty nice, and they'll find a goal that way.
Canada has not had a lot of success against Sweden all time. 5-12-3. Although in the last 8, it's 3-2-3. It's been really even. They've met a ton of different times. I do think Sweden gets the win here and moves on, but I'm with you. I don't think it's going to be all that exciting. And for U.S. fans, after what I think will be a dramatic early game, if you miss this one, I understand it. We'll get you updated on it afterwards. I got to get a prediction from you in U.S. Spain. What do you think?
U.S. Spain. I think it's going to be. I'm going to go with 1-1 into extra time and the U.S. knocking out a goal in overtime.
That's pretty good.
1-1 into extra time. I think U.S. will score first, Spain will score one late, and then the U.S. will overpower them in extra time just because of that. Just a little bit more prowess, and I think U.S. might have a little bit more depth to come off the bench to stay fresh.
Yeah, I'm along the same ways. I don't think it'll go extra time. I think it'll be a repeat of the January match. It'll be 1-0 U.S., a second half goal, kind of late. And I do think the subs will turn it because if Ellis comes in and presses with the front three, she's got 3 replacements for those front 3. And that's the benefit that she has here is she can tell Megan Rapinoe, Alex Morgan, Tobin Heath to go out and chase everything and get me to the 60th minute mark.
Because she knows she has the quality to replace, whereas for Spain, once Hermoso's done, who do you replace her with, really?
Exactly. You wear down Spain's back line. You've got Carly Lloyd, Mallory Pugh, and Kristen Press to come in and replace that front 3 if you need to. You run as much as you can and you make life difficult. I think eventually you wear them down and it's a 1-0 win for the United States. But Spain will have their chances and really make this difficult. We'll be back tomorrow to recap everything. Hopefully we don't have meltdowns, crazy VAR situations, spitting, elbows, or any of that. But it's all very possible because it's been that kind of a tournament. So we'll see what craziness we get tomorrow. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Make sure you tweet at us at Longshoe, at Jessica ATL UTD, at the Kelly Francis, at Soccer Down Here. Let us know what you're thinking as some of these crazy moments come up. And if you have questions about it or you want us to get into something on a show, please tweet at us and let us know, and we'll do that on our next one. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.